morning. Thank you guys so much for connecting with us this morning.
2026 gonna be a goddamn year. Every door you open, I walk right through. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year.
Pray that all of you guys are having a great morning so far.
Last year tried me, but it didn't break me. What I survived.
Good morning to you, Drika. Thanks so much for connecting.
I wouldn't be here. I saw him move when I had no plan.
Good morning, Tay. Thank you for connecting this morning.
So when they ask me how I got here, I point up and say, God did. I ain't flexing, I'm testifying. Everyone got heaven's signature. If you knew what he brought me through, you shouted to no filter. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. Overflow favor everywhere. When I pray in tears, I'm living clear. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year.
I'm gonna give it a couple minutes, give a few people time to connect, just in case somebody's running a little behind this morning. We'll be getting started here in just a couple minutes.
2026 gonna be a goddamn year. God did. I came out the fire with praise on me. Last year tried me, but it didn't break me. What I survived don't make no sense. If it wasn't for grace, I wouldn't be here. I saw him move when I had no plan. He made a way when I couldn't stand. So when they ask me how I got here, I point up and say, God did. I ain't flexing, I'm testifying. Everyone got heaven's signature. If you knew what he brought me through, you shouted to no fear.
For those of you who are just connected, thank you so mumuch for connecting this morning. I pray that all of you guys had a great week on last week. A pretty good weekend so far.
2026 gonna be a goddamn year. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. Every door you open, I walk right through. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. God did. I came out the fire with praise on me. Last year tried me, but it didn't break me. What I survived don't make no sense. If it wasn't for grace, I wouldn't be here. I saw him move when I had no plan. He made a way when I couldn't stand. So
we'll be getting started here in just a second.
Here, I point up and say, God did. I ain't flexing, I'm testifying. Everyone got heaven's signature. If you knew what he brought me through, you shouted to no filter. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. Overflow favor everywhere. When I pray in tears, I'm living clear. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. Every door you open, I walk right through. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year.
Good morning, Leisha.
I came out the fire with praise.
Thanks so much for connecting with us this morning.
What I survived don't make no sense. If it wasn't for grace, I wouldn't be here. I saw him move when I had no plan. He made a way when I couldn't stand. So when they ask me how I got here, I point up and say, God did. I ain't flexing, I'm testifying. Everyone got heaven's signature. If you knew what he brought me through, you shouted to no filter. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. Overflow favor.
Good morning, fam. Thanks so much for connecting this morning.
2026 gonna be a goddamn year. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year.
We're gonna go ahead and get started, and
2026 gonna be a goddamn.
Anything that anyone may miss, they can catch it in the playback. Good morning to you, Miss Hoy. Yeah, so I hope you guys had a great weekend on last week. A great week on last week and a great weekend so far. We got the rest of this day to finish enjoying the weekend. Last night, the Knicks pulled off a upset to San Antonio Spurs. Those of you keeping up with the NBA championship. Last night, the series ended with New York taking away the win. So that was good. Today we have I said I wasn't gonna say nothing, but I almost can't help it today. Some I mean, there are people all over the country celebrating their birthday today. Commander in Chief of the United States of America is also celebrating his. Got a interesting lineup for his celebration. So yeah, that and that's all I'm gonna say about it. Other than that, it seems like tensions rising over in the Middle East again. It's just a roller coaster. So you guys keep up with that, so you'll know what's going on in the with the country that you live in, the world that you live in. I'm not going to elaborate on any of that stuff today. I want to hop to it. Those of you who are in the Shreveport, Bossier City area and the immediate surrounding areas, if you get a chance, go and check out Artish, happening in downtown Shreveport. Um, I went out yesterday for a few hours, and man, it is amazing. It's a really, really, really great time, a family environment. So you can take the kids and all of the things. I think today there are several musical guests that will be appearing on the main stage. So you guys get a chance. It's on the inside, so you don't have to worry about the weather or the heat. So yeah, if you get a chance to go and check out Artists, you should go and check it out. It's something that you just really want to experience. A great time, a great vibe. I enjoyed it yesterday. But moving forward, I want to share something with you guys this morning, and that we've talked about it countless times, but I want to go back and reiterate it just because I think it's something that we should revisit from time to time. Yeah, I think I'll read a passage of scripture first, and then we will elaborate on our discussion. Okay, so in the book of James, chapter 1, verse number 19, the scripture says, "Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. Wherefore, my brethren, let every man be swift to speak, swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God." So, when you look at nuggets like this, and this is when I say nuggets, I'm talking about when you take a text out of a context, but the text itself can stand alone. That's a nugget. That's a principle. That's a gem, because the statement itself is not only applicable to the context in which it was written in, or stated in, it's also applicable to other areas of your life. So this is a principle that can be placed elsewhere, and it holds the same power. It still holds the same impact and the same truth. So I want to extract this from the context in which it was being used in this particular passage. I want to extract it from the context, and I want to elaborate on it as a standalone, because I found out that this passage of scripture is so necessary to be placed in our lives somewhere, because it is golden. And the reason why I say that is because I believe that this particular passage of scripture helps to balance our EQ, i.e., emotional intelligence. This is one of the most perfect principles to balance and to establish and sustain emotional intelligence that you will see anywhere. This passage right here, and I can get into it in just a second. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it's saying, "Let every man be swift to hear, listen, slow to speak, careful communication, and slow to wrath." Make sure that you are not being too temperamental in any situation or occasion, right? So Um, when we talk about EQ or emotional intelligence, you're talking about the ability to recognize, understand, manage, and appropriately respond to emotions, both your own emotions and someone else's emotions. Like when someone can send you a text message, pick up the phone, call you, or do some weird body gestures such as rolling their eyes or whatever. When that can happen and it can set you off, that means that your EQ is off. Your emotional intelligence is just not where it needs to be. And so you have a responsibility as an individual to manage and govern your own emotional intelligence. And the reason why I love that passage of scripture associated with emotional intelligence is because most of the time when our emotional intelligence when it's off because we're not being swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. You know what I'm saying? You being you're listening beyond what's being said, so you hear things in between the lines that were not actually said. And when you say, what does that mean? Have you ever said something to somebody and they repeated it back to you like this? They'll say, oh, so basically you saying you really don't need me. You like, that is absolutely not what I just said. But they repeat it as if they're quoting you. And the truth is, when you don't have emotional intelligence and you don't have that ability to appropriately respond, yeah, they may hear that in between the lines, and they may translate what you're saying. People who emotional intelligence are off, they gonna hit you with the so basically every single time. So basically, you telling me this. So basically, what y'all saying is this, or basically, you accusing me. No, I said to you exactly what I meant. But when you're dealing with someone that lacks emotional intelligence, you don't necessarily have to downgrade your emotional intelligence to communicate with them on a level that they could understand. It's like, no, you're gonna have to work hard for it. If that's what you understood, that is not what I said, and I'm not gonna lower my EQ so that you can understand me. I'm gonna maintain the balance that's necessary because it's necessary for me. This is how I balance myself, and this is how I balance the way that I respond to your emotions. Because if I come down there, it may go differently. And so this is why I say I believe periodically we need to revisit it because there are certain moments, seasons, times in our lives where our emotional intelligence is exactly where it needs to be, and we have the patience. But after time, patience become weakened and shortened, and we just have to go back in and visit that EQ and get the levels right. And it's not about being highly emotional. Emotional intelligence is not about being highly emotional. It's about being aware, right? And so I'm not saying you can't be emotional, and I'm not saying that you should not be extra emotional. You shouldn't be either, but you should be aware, and you should be emotionally skilled enough to know exactly how you should respond in every moment of your life and all of the dealings, especially those that are significant or intense. You should be you should be aware, and you should be emotionally skilled enough to handle it. Because unfortunately, whenever we make decisions or statements or moves while we're in a heightened emotional state, the effects of it could last longer than the emotions. So the emotions can subside, but the effects of what was done or what was said or whatever the decision was, it will linger after. And ultimately continue to cause damage because in a moment you lacked emotional intelligence. And so here is something that I deal with myself. Not often, but I do still have challenges from time to time. There are times when my patience and my emotional skills are intact and I can handle certain things better. I can respond to certain things better. But then there are other times when I'm not being swift to hear and slow to speak and slow to wrath. There are times when, like, I'm gone before I know it. And I like, wait a minute, what happened here? How did I get here? I was just on 5, and now I'm on 95. So, this is something, it's no slight against you. This is just something that we have to be aware. This is self awareness. And that skill, having this awareness and that skill in place, it'll protect you from allowing your life to be hacked by someone else's emotional intelligence or lack thereof. You don't want your EQ to be hacked by someone else. And all the time you're realizing in real time, why do I allow this person to get me out of character? Or why do I allow this statement to get me out of character? And we call them emotional triggers. And just because we've been able to label them, we think it's fine to be triggered emotionally. No, it's actually not okay to be triggered emotionally. Okay. It happens, but you should not be okay with that trigger being there because you know the effects of having that trigger. And as a result of that knowledge, what you should do is safeguard whatever that trigger is so that it cannot be, you cannot be hacked and triggered by anybody or the same particular person. You know, whenever you have when you're in a long-term relationship with a partner, we usually discover each other's triggers early on in the relationship, right? We check them out. We know what trigger them, and so in the most intense moments, sometimes as a defense, we will do things to deliberately trigger our partner because we know how to hack them. We know how to hack. And then we end up getting out of character, having to send out that message they do on social media. Hey, listen, if y'all seeing this, my page have been hacked. I am not posting. And I'm like, well, yeah, you've been hacked, all right. No, but we end up having to apologize and we have to go back and clean up things if we have the humility in place to do so. We have to go back and clean up things because we were hacked in just a moment and we were triggered. And so when you operate in emotional intelligence, not only do you know how to safeguard yourself and take the necessary precautions for yourself not to be emotionally triggered, you know how to respond and protect those in whom you're dealing with so that you don't say and or do something that's going to emotionally trigger them. You don't want to go around hacking people emotionally on purpose just because you may not agree with something that they've said or something that they've done. And so, this principle that we pulled out of the scripture this morning says, be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. And so that's how you develop your skill emotionally. Your EQ. This is how it is developed. This is how it's strengthened. This is how you do maintenance on it. You make sure that you are practicing these three things so that you won't be guilty of walking around being triggered by any and everything. You know, you guys can probably relate to just scrolling on social media and seeing a video that has nothing to do with you. You were not there. You just watch the video and you are emotionally triggered. You feel the adrenaline rushing through your veins. I mean, it's all there, all the feels, and you are absolutely triggered. And what do? We always go back and watch it again, or we share it with somebody else. I don't know why we do that. But the thing to do is to pull back. And before you open up your mouth and start speaking up on something, take a minute, assess the situation internally. Should I continue to look at this? Should I really go to the comments here? Because some people are more triggered by the comments than they are the video or the post. And you go into the comments, and in the comments, you get hacked every time. And you find yourself arguing with strangers or triggered by strangers. If you can be triggered by strangers, maybe, you need to work on your EQ a little more. Maybe you need to take some time to make sure that you are fortifying yourself emotionally. And this is something that is more and more common. This is something that's more and more common right now. And I just think that is something that we really have to give attention to. And we really need to make sure that we don't allow ourselves to continue to be triggered by stuff, because as time consists and the time goes on, I think we're gonna see more and more things that will trigger us emotionally, right? Because the world has changed. It's not changing. It has changed. And the boundaries have been pushed to the max, and they're still being pushed. So operating an emotional intelligence is going to be something that is very, very important to us. It's going to be something that you will not be able to ignore if you have in times past. I want you to take a minute right now while we're in this session, and I want you to think about how many people in your life that you have some type of relationship with, or strangers for that matter, how many can trigger you? How many of them can hack your emotional intelligence? I want you to think about the way that you are affected when they hack your emotional intelligence. When you're hacked, how does it affect you? And now I want you to think about the times that you recognized that they were just trying to trigger you, and you did not allow yourself to become vulnerable to their lack of emotional intelligence. How did you feel when you didn't respond to it the way that they thought you were, or the way that you usually do? You feel a lot better whenever you're not responding that same way. You feel a lot better when you're not triggered that same way. And usually you find resolve and remedy in that state. Whenever you could pick up the phone and read the text, and then instead of you know, going back and forth, writing 3 and 4 paragraphs in a text, you sit on it for a minute and you say, I need to respond to this appropriately. I can't do it now because I need to balance myself. You come back, you send a reply, and your reply is nothing like it would have been if you would have instantly responded. It's better. It's the same thing whenever you're communicating with someone. When you take a minute and you consider what it is you're about to communicate, and you take all of the venom out of what you're getting ready to say, it's a softer landing place that it'll find in the heart of someone else. Sometimes it's not, because if who you're speaking to, if their emotional intelligence is just off, sometimes it's never going to land correctly. And whenever you understand that, when your emotionally intelligence intelligent enough to understand that about who you are communicating with, then you save your words. You don't give them anything else that's going to trigger them and further lead them on their crash out. We have to be able to do that with everybody, every level of relationship in your life. As parents, we have to be able to do that with our children, because your children can trigger you. Sometimes y'all hate to hear y'all kids call y'all name, Mom, Dad. Oh my God. You don't even know what they want. You just triggered because your EQ is off. And you need to go and you need to find that balance. You need to balance yourself out. And this is how you protect yourself emotionally from being hacked. I had a situation on last week, and I was hacked by someone else's emotional. I don't know. It was I guess it was an emotional meltdown someone else was having, but it was so intense in the session. When I left the session, I was like, almost like, what just happened? I was feeling so overwhelmed and depleted in that moment. And I realized that it was it was a lot for me. It was a lot for me in that moment. But did I rise to the occasion and meet her there? No. I listened. I studied her communications. After she got done with her meltdown, I asked her a few simple questions. Hey, but do you still love God? Do you think any of these things will have the power to make you walk away from it? Do you still trust Him? Okay. By doing that, she came all the way down, burst into tears, and said, I do still trust God, and He has been good to me. And she's an entrepreneur having some challenges with her business, just a hard time right now. And so that's what it was all about. But she went into things that had nothing to do with her business. She was just gone. And whenever your emotional intelligence is not intact, you will allow it to spill in other areas of your life and complain about things that has nothing to do with the problem. And if your emotional, as the listener, if your emotional intelligence is thrown off, you will try to respond to all of the other things that are not the problem. And you walk away feeling defeated because emotionally you joined them. And this is the reason why I'm saying to you, we have to revisit this from time to time. You should not wait until after you're hacked to really question yourself and or summons yourself to see if in fact you have that balance in place. If you are appropriately responding to emotions, your own and of others. If every time you go to work, you can't stand for nobody to say nothing to you, nobody, and you get triggered anytime somebody asks you to do something or somebody says something to you about something that you've done, you probably need to find that balance in your relationships. If it happens, most of the time when you communicate, you probably need to find that balance. Balance yourself. Make sure that you're understanding what is going on in you that has caused you to arrive at this place. It's not going to always be a complete meltdown or crash out. Sometimes it could be subtle and it could be building up to it, but you want to catch it before we get there. You want to catch it before it it is as bad as it could get. And if you have to step away for a while to gather your faculties, center yourself, you have to do what you have to do. And I think that anyone will understand or appreciate that at the end of the day. Because two people who are emotionally crashing out, that's a disaster. That's what happens when you see senseless crimes and violent crimes and road rage. Like, you that mad at me because I didn't put my signal on? I was wrong, but it was a signal. And you really want to shoot me? Or somebody don't go when the light turned green because they're distracted. You literally ready to go to jail. I'm ready to die. Y'all, we got to do better. We got to do better. The reason why I say that is because the things that are happening in the world around us is getting crazier and crazier. It's getting like, oh my God. So we have to do better. We have to deliberately give time and attention to things like this. And my challenge for each of you all this morning is to take some time before the end of this day to really check yourself and identify the places in your life that you have been hacked by someone else emotionally, and the places in your life where you are emotionally vulnerable to being hacked. It's not that you've been hacked, but you close and you can feel it. And we announce it sometime. We say, if one more person asks me about this, I'm going off. If somebody else that you're vulnerable, you're at a place where you're about to get ready to crash out, and you need to go and identify those places and make sure that you're able to recognize where they are and understand why they're there so that you could manage them. You need to manage those areas. And once they're managed, you'll be able to appropriately respond. This will save jobs. This will save relationships between spouses. This will save relationships between parents and children. This will save you from legal troubles. I mean, it's just a good principle to operate by. Be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath, because these things regulate your emotional intelligence. And sometimes you have to pull out to do it. You know, there's all kind of instances whenever people were trying to get Christ to crash out. Pharisees, Sadducees, they'll be coming at him and they're trying to hack him emotionally, asking him questions, trying to pressure him into saying or doing something out of character. After he's had enough of those experiences, in order to balance himself, the scripture says, in that Jesus will pull away from the multitude and go into solitude to pray and to be refreshed, so that he's not continuing to be vulnerable to being hacked. There were times whenever he was doing great things, he was doing good. He out there praying for everybody, healing everybody, feeding everybody, partying, all of the stuff. But then after that, he'll pull away and make sure that his emotional intelligence is intact, so that he never will be found guilty of being hacked by anyone emotionally or crashing out emotionally with all of the pressure and the ridicule and expectation that was placed upon him. Sometimes it's not the ridicule. Sometimes the expectation that is upon you, the weight that you carry daily, your responsibilities, sometimes that could weigh you down to a point to where you become emotionally vulnerable to a crash out. But your emotional intelligence will say, hey, listen, you're carrying a lot. You need to pull back and chill for a minute. You need to take a moment to center yourself, because it's not always someone hacking you. Sometimes it could be what you are carrying. We carry a lot. And if you are carrying a lot and you have a lot of responsibility on your plate, I want to encourage you to make sure that you're taking time to identify the areas that may be vulnerable so that you can manage them. And this will be a principle that should be set in the center of your life. Okay, I gotta be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. Need to make sure my emotional intelligence is intact at all times, because I can handle everything else. But whenever I'm off emotionally, I don't necessarily make the best decisions. Sometimes I say things I can't retract. So I need to make sure that I'm straight on this. Yeah, listen, we're just about out of time. I pray that I've said something to encourage you and open your eyes, and that you will really honestly take this challenge today and really just take a moment and go and see where you're emotionally vulnerable at, and that you would manage those areas so that you could be protected, and that you would intentionally work on appropriately responding to those emotions as well as the emotions of others. I pray that your awareness of others around you, your awareness of their EQ is increased, so that you can utilize your tool, your emotional skill, to make sure that you're not hacked by someone else's emotions. We have to do that with everybody, even your friends, your associates, your closest friend, your friend circle. If somebody is venting in the friend circle, let them vent. But if everybody joining in and agreeing with them, and it's just going lower and lower and lower, you guys, y'all need to take a minute in y'all friend group to have a conversation and say, look, all of us cannot emotionally crash out. I don't need you to crash out with me emotionally. I'm just venting to you, and then I need you to help balance me. I need you to help me to manage my emotions. So, but yeah, I've challenged you guys, and I hope you guys have been encouraged with that. I want you to go and enjoy the rest of your Sunday afternoon, evening. I pray that you guys have a wonderful week on this upcoming week. And if you need me before next Sunday morning, 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, hit me up. I'll reply and respond at my earliest convenience. Um, Please don't forget to go and make a donation. If you're inspired and encouraged by these sessions weekly, please do go and make a donation. If you don't know how, reach out to myself, whomever shared this link with you, and we'll get that information to you. But please consider making a donation if, in fact, this has been a constant and a blessing throughout your life. Um, I love you guys, and I will see you on next Sunday morning, 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. I bid you all blessings and Godspeed. 2026 gonna be a god year. 2026 gonna be a god year. Every door you open, I walk right through.
2026 gonna be a goddamn year. God did it. I came out the fire with praise on me. Last year tried me, but it didn't break me. What I survived don't make no sense. If it wasn't for grace, I wouldn't be here. I saw him move when I had no plan. He made a way when I couldn't stand. So when they ask me how I got here, I point up and say, God's dead. I ain't flexing, I'm testifying. Everyone got heaven's signature. If you knew what he brought me through, you shout it to no filter. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. Overflow favor everywhere. When I pray in tears, I'm living clear. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. Every door you open, I walk right through. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. God did it. I came out the fire with praise on me. Last year tried me, but it didn't break me. What I survived don't make no sense. If it wasn't for grace, I wouldn't be here. I saw him move when I had no plan. He made a way when I couldn't stand. So when they ask me how I got here, I point up and say, God's dead. I ain't flexing, I'm testifying. Everyone got heaven's signature. If you knew what he brought me through, you shout it to no filter. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. Overflow favor everywhere. When I pray in tears, I'm living clear. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. 2026 gonna be a goddamn year. Every door you open, I walk right through.